I can't believe that the Democrats looked at this last election cycle and were like, we're devoid of leadership. So who is lo and behold, who is the guy that's going to be responsible for the Democratic Party? Who's going to be the guy that we use as our North Star? Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer. Just like apparently we missed a devastating Schumer interview. This appearance on All In with Chris was devastating for Schumer. Ignoring the criticism from all corners of the party, can't articulate a strategy. It's bizarre. He thinks his 2017 seems oblivious to how much unlimited money changes the incentive structure for GOP lawmakers. All right, let's look at it. Chris Hayes.
It's good to have you here, Senator.
He's got some
talk about
smoke.
the book, which I read over the last 24 hours, and I enjoyed.
Oh my God, 37 minutes long. Oh no, did Chris ambush Schumer by claiming he was gonna fucking make him talk about the book, and then the entire purpose of this was to actually address the understandable criticisms? Holy moly, that's the base. That right there is the strongest fedayeen of the HasanAbi heads out there. Okay, right now he's leveled up. He's one of the best.
Quite a bit. The last time I had you on Friday was on the day of the shutdown being averted. And you came on the program, you said why you thought it was important. And since then, we've had this enormous backlash. Right. And obviously, you're in politics a long time. You understand this comes with the territory. Has it made you rethink anything?
No, look, I knew when I made this decision I'd get a lot of flack. I'm a smart politician, but I thought even though the CR was a terrible, terrible bill and would allow...
Dude, I can't get over the glasses, dude. It's like everyone jokes about it now, but it's just like, I guess I never noticed it, but it is kind of funny that they're just like not ever on his eyes. What is that? Is it because it's like a reading glasses? Is that what it is? Like when he goes to the optometrist, like, does he go, hey, I want you, because the optometrist has to like identify where your iris is, where your pupils are, right? So that they can frame your optics to make sure that you're, using the glasses. So he goes to the optometrist, and the optometrist is like, please, no, I want you to to pinpoint where my pupils are if I wear it right here. It's called being an old man. That's his steez, bro. Shut the fuck up. It's called being an old man, Hasan. You should know. Bro has plus 25 vision. We can't even comprehend what he sees. Yeah. Chuck Schumer sees, the mere mortal sees in decades. Chuck Schumer sees in centuries, okay?
Within the CR, the administration to move things around, I thought a shutdown was so much worse, 20 times worse. And let me explain why so people understand it. Under a shutdown, the executive branch has absolute power to determine what is, quote, essential.
Right.
They have the sole power. Court rulings have said the courts have no say. Right. Now, under normal time, if it was a shutdown, okay, it'd be a Republican government. They do that. You have these fanatics, right, these anti-government, vicious nihilists in charge. They can say anything. Anything is not essential. So it could have been today if we were in the shutdown. They said, feeding hungry children, not essential. Eliminate SNAP. 2 days from now, the only thing we need in transportation are air traffic controllers. Cut off all mass transit funding to New York and the other cities of the country, all transit funding. Day 6, Medicaid. They could cut off Medicaid almost totally.
Dude, I can't stop looking at his glasses. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I can't stop thinking about how hard it must be for him to see. It's so stupid. Is there a point where he uses his fingers to push him up? They slid down. He's pushed them shits up, man. Lol overruled. Yeah, POV, you just told 74-year-old Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who's been in Congress for 27 years, that President Trump just suspended habeas corpus and is mass arresting political enemies.
What did he do? You better not do that, Mr. President. He did what? Oh, my God. He can't do that. Somebody's got to stop him. Mr. President, you can't do that.
Dude, this is from a month ago, dude. This is from 1 month ago. No. Oh, Jesus Christ.
So within 2 weeks, they could just so decimate the federal government, almost throwing a bomb at it, that we could never recover. And wait, one more thing that's worse. There's no exit ramp. In other words, solely up to the executive branch. And one Republican senator who's close to these horrible Doge Musk people said that they expected to close it down for 6 months,
the nihilists.
9 months, till the whole federal government was obliterated. Musk's dream to get $2 trillion out of the federal government.
I love his argument so much because it's so stupid, where he's like, no, you see, you don't understand. Trump actually really wanted a government shutdown. It would have been his dream. It's like, so why did he actively threaten congresspersons that weren't voting for the CR? Oh, he really wanted the shutdown. We're actually hurting him by giving him more legal power with the legislative body to do the things that he wants to do, which you would do in the shutdown. You see, it was a 5D chess move. Okay, you don't understand. That's why the Republicans all voted for it collectively, with the exception of one, who Trump said he was going to primary. That's what happened.
Could happen under a shutdown. So I felt the very people who are upset now.
Yeah, we must pass the Enabling Act. Otherwise, Hitler might declare martial law-ass argument. Yes.
If we went through with the shutdown and all these things happened, would be coming 2-3 weeks later and saying, get it open, get it snap open, get mass transit open. I'd say, well, it's a shutdown. We can't. They said, well, why'd you let that happen? So one more thing. Yeah. I knew I'd take a lot of flack. But, you know, when you're a leader, sometimes you have to do things that you know are right, despite the consequences. I've always said to people in politics, the higher up you climb, the more fierce the winds blow. The only thing that keeps you from being blown off course is your internal gyroscope.
I cannot, dude. The Democrats certainly do have a crisis of good leadership. Okay, they have a crisis of good leadership, right? They had Joe Biden, who was a carcass. They had Kamala Harris, who was a charisma suck. And that is a problem, especially if you're going against a very charismatic person like Donald Trump, a very telegenic person like Donald Trump. And it's doubly, triply, quadruply a problem when you don't have any policies. Like Bernie isn't the most charismatic person of all time, but he has policies that he earnestly defends and is consistent on, right? So you can identify exactly what Bernie Sanders is about. You can have disagreements with him on it, but at least you can, like, you know exactly what the he wants. He says it all the time. Right? So these guys are devoid of policies that you can associate them with, which means that they're very malleable, which means that you can just basically say, therefore this, if you're a Republican, and everyone will believe it because they're like, well, I haven't heard them say anything else. Right? Like if they were all collectively in favor of Medicare for all, for example, and actively were trying to change that at the legislative level, then at least like people could be like, well, you know, yeah, they like the gay stuff, but they also want health care. I don't know. That seems like a good idea, right? But they don't do that. So now all that remains is whatever the Republicans decided the Democrats stand for, which is, I guess, like giving transgender undocumented migrants like bottom surgery or whatever they were saying, right? As though that's the only position that the Democrats maintain that they care about. Chuck Schumer also doesn't stand for anything except obviously he is, you know, he's a lot of choice words for people who protest against Israel. There's that. But outside of that, he also has no charisma. I can't believe that the Democrats looked at this last election cycle and were like, we're devoid of leadership. So who is lo and behold, who is the guy that's going to be responsible for the Democratic Party? Who's going to be the guy that we use as our North Star? Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer. Just like one of the worst politicians. Just so bad. So bad. Like, I've consistently railed against Chuck Schumer for years. I don't like Nancy Pelosi. I hate Nancy Pelosi. But what did I always say? In the interest of fairness, I always told you she is a vicious whip, okay? She knows her caucuses. She knows how to move people around in the House of Representatives. That's why she was considered the true leader of the Democratic Party in perpetuity. Chuck can't even do that. Chuck has never been able to do that. He didn't even use Dick Durbin as his whip, right? He didn't whip votes appropriately ever. The expectation was that, you know, Senate is just an eclectic group of Democrats that do whatever the fuck they want to do. And there's not really much you can say about it. You know, it is what it is. That's just how the Senate is, right? There's always a spoiler. It blew my mind. So this incompetent geriatric monster is now the leading figurehead of the Democratic Party. It's over. It's done. You're cooked.
That's what I used.
So I take that seriously, that sort of catastrophic nature.
I thought so long and hard about it.
Well, let me just, I want to sort of pivot it a little to a more of a tactical decision, because there was something that happened here that doesn't normally happen, which is they knew they needed Democratic votes and they cut you out entirely.
Entirely.
Now, when that has happened before, Republicans have filibustered successfully and forced Democrats to the table. And so just purely at the level of how the tactics brought us to this point, I want to play some of the criticism, again, not from like backseat drivers or not from me on cable news, but people like Hakeem Jeffries or Nancy Pelosi. Take a listen.
Look, Chuck and I disagreed as it relates to the approach and outcome.
I think there is a deep sense of outrage and betrayal. And this is not just about progressive Democrats. This is across the board, the entire party.
I still support Senator Schumer as leader, but I think the only way that we are going to be effective as a caucus is...
Bro, he didn't even cut away from his face. They're making him fucking watch this while he's licking his lips, and you get to see it. You get to see him watch this humiliating compy of members of his own party being like, yeah, he kind of sucks dick. What are you going to do about it? He's like, come on, Chuck, react to it. That's awesome. I mean, he deserves significantly worse than this.
If we change our tactics, I would have liked...
Yeah, this is the reading bit about the imaginary family that he has, right? That he uses as his North Star whenever he's making decisions about legislation. I know. He has a fake family that he's created in his mind that he goes to for advice. I know. We'll look at that in a little bit. Let's just keep going. He's in the cuck chair right now.
To see when Chuck Schumer had leverage here to say...
I like that his reaction is slowly getting worse. Bro, put the glasses on. You can't see. You can't see who's saying it.
We need A, B, C, and D for the Democratic Party, and force the Republicans to meet him halfway on those issues.
I myself don't give away anything for nothing. And I think that's what happened the other day.
They said, okay, he said leverage, I think it was the governor.
And Nancy Pelosi said, I myself don't give away anything for nothing. I think
read it back. Read it back, Chris. Read it back to him. What did Nancy say, Chris?
I think that's what
the only leverage we had. They weren't going to negotiate with us. So there were two choices.
That's not true. Trump said he would negotiate.
Choices only. It would be nice if we had a third choice. We tried to get that third choice with the 30-day extension that Patty Murray tried to get some more moderate Republicans on the Appropriations Committee to go along. They wouldn't. So we were faced only the Senate, not the House. They had a little easier because they could vote no against the CR and not cause a shutdown. Right. But in the Senate, the only two choices were these choices, period. And the choice of the shutdown was so severe, you're giving them the keys to the city. Why would we? Look, this guy, the worst of them all, is this guy who's head of OMB named Vogt, V-O-U-G-H-T, but people hear the word vote. He already has a plan to shut down a large church of the
doing it right now.
No, he cannot. Now, if you don't have a shutdown, you can go to court. Right. And we've had some successful results in the courts. A lot of the judges we put in, Chris, you know, the 235, we've won about 85% of the cases. Shutdown, no court. They make the decision, and they can make it quickly, easily, and across the whole federal government, not just the things that were in the CR.
But here's to me my understanding of the critique that's broader than the specifics here, which is about the level and depth of crisis we're in and the appropriate tactics to meet them. Mm-hmm. And so what I think people think is, first of all, we all know the Senate functions on unanimous consent. That's how anything happens. We've watched real pains in the butt, Tommy Tuberville, basically bring the place to a halt. Just denying unanimous consent because he was mad the Department of Defense might somewhere pay for a portion, right? The idea of how cataclysmic that shutdown, I hear what you're saying. But what I'm hearing from people, and there's a lot of them, is right now a crisis is happening unlike anything the Republic has faced, maybe since even the Civil War. Right. Most Americans don't quite grasp it. And it's your job as the most powerful Democrat to use whatever tactics you have to communicate that. And by going along with this, You have missed this opportunity to tell the nation
there's only one,
just how bad it is.
There's only one choice to going along with it. Shut down. We have to pick the fights, and I want to fight Trump as much as anybody and stop him and not give Republicans sucker help. But in this situation,
but doesn't it call the question? But doesn't it call the question? Doesn't the crisis create the attentional vortex that is necessary? Because right now, people have no idea that they're going to basically get rid of all of American universities and all of American science funding.
Yeah.
We try to communicate it every night, but there's nothing like a crisis to drive that home.
But the drama of the shutdown, eliminating all of these things, would do such damage substantively, that I couldn't tolerate it. I couldn't live with it. You know, I know there's the idea that, okay, people will sit and negotiate with us because they're doing bad things. That ain't these Republicans. They wouldn't sit with us for nothing because their overall goal. Look, the Republican Party is a new party.
Right.
It's controlled by these MAGA right billionaires. They want two things. They want to pay no taxes, so get rid of all the spending, even if it's for. I mean, I was up today, you know, we had a Medicare Day of Action, Hakeem and I, and senators and congressmen went and talked about.
Thank God he's doing a Medicare Day of Action, because God damn, he's just using that as a talking point non-fucking stop now. My goat. Thankfully, he did a Medicare Day of Action, guys. You should have been doing this since fucking day one. Like, every damn day, every damn moment where these guys were like, we will fight, we will win. All this shit that he was saying. Like, they should have been using that every opportunity to be like, this is austerity. This is what the Republicans are trying to do. This is like, they're actively cutting your benefits. They're actively going to harm you. They're actively going to ruin your fucking lives. And instead of doing all that, he's just like, now finally they got, they got their shit in order, I guess.
Medicaid. I went up to Montefiore Hospital, which covers all the Bronx. It's the only cancer center in the whole Bronx. 80%.
I grew up a block from Montefiore Hospital.
There you
Continue.
go. Well, 80% of the people there are Medicare and Medicaid, and they're the only cancer treatment. If they cut Medicaid by 20%, children would die.
Okay.
And that's what would happen with a shutdown.
Well, I mean,
so you say have leverage. We should. But in this case, the choice given to us, because they couldn't, and I don't blame them, they wouldn't negotiate with the Democrats because they had all the votes, because Trump is such a hammer, gave us only two choices. So if there was not a third choice.
Okay, so then the question is, okay, these people won't negotiate. This was the one opportunity for leverage because of the need for a filibuster-proof majority. They're not going to have that on reconciliation, right? They're going to have it, right?
There are going to be other opportunities.
But then because what people hear is like, we're going to lie in the cut till they self-destruct. Like, what's the plan? Well, but then what is the strategic plan?
Here is the plan. Here's what we're doing right now, okay? There are two things I want to say. One, every day we are hammering away at Trump. And we have a simple thought that unites the Democratic Party from one end to the other. He's asking the middle class to pay for tax cuts for the billionaires. It unites us all. Bernie Sanders likes it, and my most conservative members like it. We're hammering away at that. Today it was Medicaid. Tomorrow it's going to be, or in the next few days, it's going to be tariffs. He's raising those tariffs, raising your costs, Mr. and Mrs. American, by $2,000 a year if he raises all these tariffs, so that he can use that money for tax cuts for the billionaires. He's cutting your education funds, and so your kids don't get a great education. And
Schumer isn't stupid. He's doing exactly what he thinks will get the most Dem donations down the line. He's taking the sword for the party. I believe that he tanked this deliberately because he was worried that if the Republicans didn't play ball and didn't concede to any demands that the Democrats were making, which would have been moderate as fuck, by the way, because that's just how the Democrats are, that it would have nosedived the stock market further at a time when Trump's will they, won't they attitude towards tariffs is already creating too much volatility, too much instability, in a way where even the super wealthy are not enjoying the benefits because it's crashing the stock market. And I think big donors were like, dude, shut this down, eat it, make sure that this passes. And that's precisely the reason why he initially said that he was going to fight this and then quickly, almost overnight, him and Kirsten Gillibrand, overnight, turned around and were like, yeah, we're actually going to push this. And they were yelling at their own. They were caucusing. They were whipping votes in favor of cloture so that this bill would not have to go through a filibuster so that the Republicans could pass it with their simple majority. Stock market's still going down, though, so we did it for nothing? No, it would have tanked way further. That's the one thing that really causes the stock market to crash. Polling showed that people would blame Trump and the GOP 53%, then the Democrats 32%. The biggest federal government employee union, AFGE, asked senators to vote no on the House-produced continuing resolution and said that a shutdown is actually preferable. I covered this at the time as well. Think about that. The biggest federal government employee union, people who would be furloughed in a government shutdown, people who would lose their fucking jobs in a government shutdown, were saying, no, force there to be a shutdown because the repercussions of not doing that and allowing Trump to legally defund federal agencies will cause worse instability in the long term, okay? Because a furlough is political instability for the party that is in power. And therefore, you can't do an endless furlough. You can't endlessly shut the government and just be like, yeah, we're just going to keep it shut down. Nobody wants that. Very clearly shows everyone that isn't even paying attention that, you know, this stuff that the Republicans are trying to do, which is be like undermining federal regulatory agencies and doing mass layoffs, is basically like an extended furlough, right? But if you do it over a long period of time, you can get away with a lot more damage versus forcing the government to a shutdown will immediately cause people to react. Chuck Schumer did not want to do that because I think big donors reached him and were like, don't fucking let this happen. And that's why there was reporting on the time. There was reporting on at the time that like people, like the Democrats in the Senate were yelling at Kirsten Gillibrand and Chuck Schumer both, that they were telling them like, no, you have to vote for cloture. Yeah, here it is. This is what I'm talking about. Exactly. I can hear Senator Kirsten Gillibrand speaking quite loudly inside the Senate Dem lunch. She seems to be making the case against allowing the government to shut down. I just heard Gillibrand say, this will not be a normal shutdown. This is what I'm talking about. They're so cooked.
School taxes will go up for that. So we have started doing this day in, day out, every day, fighting relentlessly. His numbers have started to go down from 51 to 47. If we keep at it and keep at it and keep at it, his numbers will be much lower. He will not only be less popular, but less effective. Second, we will find the moments where we shouldn't give them votes. Hakeem and I met yesterday. We're exploring that right now. And there will be times, just like this instance, where people will say, don't give them the votes because you have the leverage. There will be instances, not like this, where a shutdown would ensue, but where we will have the higher ground. And we're going to do it. Watch us.
Okay, but here's what I would say in response to that. And again, I'm channeling people as much as I can.
Hey, this is a democracy still. Let's hope it stays.
Well, here's what I would say is that all of those things you enumerated, which all sound like good politics to me, are the kinds of things that you'd be doing if Mitt Romney were president. That, like, there's this weird asymmetry right now, which is that they are acting in this totally new way, in which they are ambitiously trying to seize all power and create a presidential dictatorship in the United States of America. And the Democratic opposition is acting like, well, if we can get their approval rate down a few points, then what? What happens?
Well, what happens is, look, first, we get it way down. He's going to have much less. This worked in 2017. You say it didn't. Now it's a different government.
It's different, though.
Oh, it is different. But health care, we beat him. Taxes, we beat him. And guess what we did? Guess what we did, Chris? We took back the House and won in the Senate, and then we were allowed to do all those good things. This is not the only tactic. We have to stand strong in certain instances and not give them the votes at all. But there are instances with this. The two work together.
Okay. Again, I don't disagree with any of that. But the difference to me between 2017 and now, and I've been at this desk for both of them.
It's different.
It is a full-fledged assault on the constitutional order that has not been seen again.
Well, that's
certainly in my life.
That is true.
But the question then becomes...
But that's not the spending part.
That isn't. But then the question becomes, what is the role of the minority in resisting that that's distinct from we're going to beat them on health care, we're going to beat them on spending Medicaid.
Look, if our democracy is at risk,
it is at risk.
Sorry, it is certainly at risk.
Well, do you believe it is?
But if
I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you believe it's at risk?
Trump doesn't obey the Supreme Court, which may happen, you led up to it here, then we will have two courts. We will have the federal courts, which hopefully John Roberts will stand up and make it happen. But we'll have the court of public opinion. And if that happens, as you pointed out, we have had rule of law since the Magna Carta, okay? And if that happens and the rule of law goes by the wayside, I believe that there will be very, very there will be immediate and strong reaction from one end of the country to the other.
You know what's crazy? This would be wish casting for a random individual with no proximity to power. It's insane to hear this from the minority leader of the Democratic Party in the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer. The notion that people are going to magically come to the conclusion that Donald Trump is doing wrong and then decide that the Democrats are actually going to be the solution to this problem is idiotic. Let me tell you why it's idiotic. He thinks it's 2017, except it's not 2017, it's 2025. And one thing that's really important to understand is that in 2016, when Trump became president, it was considered an aberration. It was considered weird. That's why there was tremendous media focus on Donald Trump and all of the awful shit that he was doing. Donald Trump also was less competent in 2017. And you want to know what the key factor is here in 2017 versus 2025? The Democrats were actively egging Trump on. They were pushing him. They were pushing his buttons. They were resisting everything that he was doing every step of the way. Now, that resistance was obviously still very liberal focused, but none of that exists in 2025. If you sit back and expect the public opinion to shift away from Donald Trump and then lean back into the hands of the Democratic Party, you are out of your fucking mind. The only thing that will happen is as material conditions worsen, people will get more and more upset at the Democrats or whoever Trump has decided is the enemy. Trump is more popular than the party. Trump is more popular than you. Part of the reason why is because you guys never fight. I find them. What? What do you? Oh, I thought you were talking to me.
Other in ways that we have never seen. And that's what will happen. And it's not just up to us. The people will have to rise up, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, not just, people, everybody. But our democracy will be at stake then. And if the people make their voices heard and are strong and stand up and we join them, I believe we can try to beat that back. We can beat that back. But it's on that one. If democracy is at risk, that's a little different than what we're talking about now, even a shutdown, as horrible as it is. We'll all have to stand up and fight back in every way.
I think actually this is useful because I do think, like, just in a genuine sort of good faith way, that there's a lot of people, and I think I probably count myself among them, who think that that's where we are right now. Well, that the plan being deployed right now.
You may be right. I don't think so. We're there. I think
we're not there yet.
Well, I think we're getting there, and we have to be really vigilant. I just had a meeting today with the Judiciary Committee to decide how we're working through this as it goes further. It hasn't been up to the Supreme Court yet, which would be the classic if they disobey the Supreme Court. We're on our way there, God forbid, but I think we are, and we'll have to go at it and at it and at it. And that is different than anything else. Different than anything else. It's a quantum leap different because our democracy is then 248 years of American democracy. The Magna Carta is out the window, and we will all have to take extraordinary action.
You have a new book.
Yes.
And I would like to talk about it.
Good.
So I'm going to take a quick break, Senator. We're going to talk about anti-Semitism in America, a warning, right after this quick break.
Great. Thank you.
I'm back with Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, who is the highest elected Jewish official in America and the author
ever, by the way,
of the brand new book,
God, he keeps saying ever. Oh. if only Bernard won the presidency. You know what I'm saying? Let's see what, I mean, we've already heard the spiel on this 3 times today, so I don't think we need to hear it again, right? Old people in Nebraska are saying tax the rich against their Republican rep. Wait, was this the one where Mike Flood was like, my town hall radical lefties, and then he posted a photo and like the average age there is 73? Is this that town hall? Because that was really funny. Like, not even a shred of irony. He didn't even realize what the fuck he was doing. He just posted yeah. Oh, here. This is amazing. Yeah. Another great, this is Michael Baumgartner. Another great town hall at Whitworth University, even though I knew going in that 99% of the audience was from our far left and there would be frequent interruptions and chants. It was a really fun night. 99% far left. Look at these far leftists, dog. Do you see these radical far leftists in the fucking crowd, dude? I can't believe it. Look at all these card-carrying DSA members, dude. This dude was alive when communism was invented. What the fuck are you talking about? The only specter that's haunting this hall is literal ghosts who haven't turned into ghosts yet. They are on the verge of becoming a ghost tomorrow. Look at these, man. Look at these guys. Yeah, he saw the rise and fall of the USSR. I don't.
Okay, let's talk about this. So your proposal to solve this is to tax the rich.
Look at these radical far lefties. I love this. More radical far lefties at town halls. Amazing. All right. They're living off the spoils of when we tax the rich. Of course, they want to go back to it. I mean, I'm just happy that they actually see it. Like, they actually recognize it. That's a unique change of pace and a unique change of attitude. All right. That's all I got for today.